All right. Let's get right into it. Also, Munson, you've been at a lot of levels of the Republican Party in Minnesota. You've been around for a while. You come from the Ron Paul era that I do, 2012. You and I have worked a lot together in politics over the years. You've actually even run for Congress, U.S. Congress, and we're within like 300 some votes of becoming the congressman from CD1. So, a seasoned veteran in politics in the state of Minnesota. I think you're a good person to run some of these numbers of the state election or state contest by. And so let's start with the newly reported figures from the gubernatorial race, because I think this is what most people are going to care about right now. And this is showing the four main candidates. Mike Lindell, who's polling ahead right now, raised $76,000 since May 31st. So just so people understand, that this last disclosure before what came out today was May up to May 31st. It's called the June report. And then they have the pre-primary report where all expenditures and receipts all the way up to July 20th reported. So it shows Lindell raised $76,000 since then. It's according to the report, only spent $654, showing that he's got cash on hand of just south of $76,000. Lisa Demuth, who I believe is the establishment's choice in this race, she's obviously a rhino. She has a voting record, and it's not good. She's raised $161,000 since the May 31st report. Has spent the most of all these campaigns at $241,602. She actually went down cash on hand, lost about $61K, but she still sits on $450,000 in cash on hand. This is what I don't think many people noted is Kendall Qualls, endorsed candidate for the Republican Party, actually raised the most out of all those Republican candidates with $194,651. He spent just shy of that, $166,000, and he added about $33,277 cash on hand. Okay, then we get to the Democrat, Amy Klobuchar. If you're not from Minnesota, you probably still know her because she tried running for president. She is an establishment Democrat with huge bona fides nationwide. She's just as liberal as Tim Walz, but she's pretty much considered Miss Nice, Miss Minnesota Nice. She raised, get this number, $2.3 million just since May 31st, which brings her up to $9.3 million total raised. So she's actually spent, and we'll just give her the whole numbers in her campaign, $4.8 million. She's sitting on basically $4.5 million cash on hand. Munson, I mean, when you look at these numbers, what's going through your head? What do you think about this race coming up?
Well, first of all, if you go back to your chart, I want to add something that I think is really missing from this chart. Imagine in your mind a line, an additional line, which is an in-kind contribution, because the Trump endorsement, to me, is worth about $2 million for the campaign having raised, right? That is an enormous value that Lindell received. I would call it an in-kind contribution from the Trump campaign that puts him, like when you're comparing numbers to numbers, that's a huge deal. Qualls has the Minnesota GOP endorsement, which includes the sample ballot mailer, which just hit 220,000 households in Minnesota, which tells many voters who bring that little postcard to the polls of who our candidates are. That is golden. That is worth, the mailer alone is worth $500,000, but the endorsement for the party also means that you're going to have BPOUs, the local Republican Party units, carrying your signs in 1,500 parades from the endorsement to the primary time. And at 76 county fairs across the state, you're going to have the, people stop by the Republican booth. Who's your governor candidate? Kendall Qualls. That Minnesota GOP endorsement is worth at least $1.5 million, or maybe even $2 million of value to the campaign. Whereas Lisa Demuth, she didn't got anything, right? She's got the endorsement of MCCL, I guess, which is worth a little bit. But the MCCL booths can't put their signs up, right? It's a separate group that has to do the mailing for MCCL. And then I think the NRA endorsed her, if I remember correctly, and the Minneapolis Police and Peace Officers. So she's got some minor endorsements, but it's not the MNGOP endorsement, and it is not a Trump endorsement. So she's running behind in there, and that's just why I think her numbers are dropping.
Okay, so let's go to this here real quick. I want to push back on you a little bit. This is the KSTP Survey USA poll that came out. Now, this is from July 15th through July 20th, so it's kind of overlapping this reporting period. And what it shows is Mike Lindell with a lead, 35%, Lisa Damuth, 26%, and Kendall Qualls, measly 11%, with 22% undecided and 5% other Republican. I agree with you that that the Trump endorsement matters, but in some degrees, like, does it have to translate to actually hard cash into the campaigns, or do you think the message gets out there enough through just traditional media reporting on it, or some emails from pro-Trump PACs? How does that have such tremendous value? I think you said like millions of dollars. How does it have that tremendous value if the campaign doesn't really have any money to push out and get that message out to the voters?
I think you'll see the federal party, so like the RNC, spending in this race to get Lindell across the line.
Oh, really? You think so?
I think so. I think that I mean, Trump endorses not based on principles. He endorses based on loyalty, and he also, and then also one of the reasons why Trump endorses is if he hates your opponent, or he wants to beat Tim, win Tim Walz's state, and so it's personal for him. So those two combined, I think he's going to try to. I think it wouldn't surprise me if the party injected money directly into Lindell's race. Now, there was also a recent ruling that allows the parties to contribute an unlimited amount of money to a campaign, whereas Minnesota laws and federal laws were restrictive of how much parties can transfer. Now, if you've signed the public subsidy agreement, that would negate that, because you've already agreed to the rules saying, I'm only going to spend this much and I will not accept more than this much money from parties. But for Lindell, who's the only candidate who has not signed the public subsidy agreement, he could then receive an unlimited amount of money directly from the national party, which would be huge. And then, of course, just Trump doing a video or a commercial endorsing him is going to get so much more traction than MCCL or the weak NRA group going out there and endorsing Lisa.
Okay, so do you think that the party, and when you say the party, I'm guessing you're saying the RNC is going to spend pre-primary? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it's possible, but
I mean, they'd have to reserve the network time by now, and you'd probably start seeing the mailers start hitting.
Yeah, and I didn't have time before the show here, but I usually go out to the publicfiles.fcc.gov where you can start searching to see which campaigns have filed to reserve and spend money, because that's also important. I mean, outside of Lisa's numbers, you didn't include the Sanity Pact or whatever that's called, Restore Sanity.
You don't have their numbers right now, unfortunately.
Okay, well that would come into big, and I don't know if there's a PAC supporting Kendall, but those numbers are there. The numbers would be important to see how much money is being spent out there.
Right. Yeah. And that is very important. But we went there to the Restore Sanity, and I had initially just thought that they were taking the $25 a day hit and not reporting to just keep it secret. But turns out there was a massive IT issue with the CFP, and it's not actually the filers issue, it's the CFB. So that we'll probably start seeing these things come in the next couple of days. Actually, you had that issue too with your campaign.
Yes, we tried many times yesterday to file, and then the CFB emailed us saying that it's okay. They're trying to get people access to file their reports.
Yeah, unfortunately. So we were kind of in the dark on that. So what we do know, Jeremy, is that Restore Sanity, which is a billionaire that's trying to win the race for Lisa Damuth, is sending out a plethora of expenditures. These are just mailers that have shown up in the last week at my household. I think there's even more, and those are the ones that I quickly grabbed. And then we know that she's up on network TV, and Restore Sanity's on network TV. I've seen just at 5 o'clock news on KSTP. There you go. That's a different one than the one I have. So exactly my point, right? And we're reliable primary voters. So they're targeting their list of primary voters. They're up on network TV, which, let's be honest, if you're going to the 5 o'clock news hour, you're targeting the gray hairs, the boomers, because that's who watches the 5 o'clock news, not our age, and except for nerds like us. And so both Restore Sanity and her are buying network TV, and not just KSTP, all the different ones, but I usually watch KSTP over the others. I don't see any expenditures from Kindle, and I don't see any expenditures from Mike Lindell in that regards. That's either up on network or going the mailers going to the houses of primivores. Do you see this?
Yeah. No, I don't see this. I don't see the spending, but I have been going to a lot of county fairs and walking in parades amongst the the GOP grassroots delegates, right?
Yeah.
And there are so many people out there upset with Lisa and what she's done and how she's filed. Like our chance of winning the governor's race was probably like 47% chance if
Yeah.
we were, before the endorsement. And then her filing to primary our endorsed candidate basically ruined it. And I know Mike Lindell was going to do his own thing, but a lot of people are really upset with what Lisa's doing. And I think that the 2,000 or 5,000 like activists in the party that would like to follow the party process are each of them have their own circle of influence in telling people how to vote. And so I think that's going to work against Lisa, regardless of how she spends. And we'll see. I think that Lisa's got the money. Lindell's got the Trump endorsement. Kendall's got the party apparatus working for him. And I would have put this all at about an equal, like they all have about the same shot of winning. It's a fascinating race to watch.
Okay, so you think the KSTP poll's a miss right now that's not factoring in, or it just is going to take the last 3 weeks of the campaign until that actually balances out?
I think that the KSTP poll was done before the sample ballot mailer hit.
Yep, correct.
And the Lindell Trump endorsement has really gotten out there. So I think it's not reflective of how people sit like today.
Okay, gotcha. You had talked before we went on air. You see this as a big win for a lot of the campaign consultancy class. It does seem like if we go back to the numbers, Lisa by far spent the most in terms of Republicans. She spent almost $250,000. I'd imagine way more than that. So she probably is sitting with way less cash in hand because of network ads here in the last 2 weeks. Is that been no last week? Last 8 days, I should say, since this report. Is that your sense?
Yeah, and I mean, it's amazing that is she showing underwater in her campaign? Is that what I?
No, I'm sorry. I just generated that thing, and it's just showing that the cash on hand went down. So she's still sitting well cash in hand relative to everyone. It's just that unlike Mike and unlike Qualls, her cash on hand went down. So it showed she spent
and any good campaign consultant is going to hold off the spending to buy the TV ad so that it shows like you have cash on hand going into the primary. And then the day after they filed, they spent, $250,000 on TV. So she probably doesn't have anywhere near that cash now. I also want to point out something really important that's bothered me, that people are attacking Mike Lindell, and I'm not publicly supporting Mike Lindell, but I want to clarify something on the t-shirts in the MyPillows, or that t-shirts, the books that he's handing out in the MyPillows. Minnesota campaign finance law requires that you pay full MSRP for any merchandise that you're purchasing from a business, which is his MyPillow store.
Right.
Even though we can use a 68% discount coupon of, Jake loves Lindell, if you go to lindell.com or whatever the thing is, Mike Lindell's campaign must pay full MSRP for those pillows in order to give them away as a campaign expense. And so people are saying, well, he's giving himself millions. Well, it's going right back into him and he's going to put it back in the campaign. Like, it is a requirement of campaign finance. And a lot of candidates who write books give them out, but he has to pay, the full cost of that publisher, the MSRP. He can't just give himself a discount because corporate contributions to these campaigns is illegal.
Yeah, I had a different take on this. I was explaining this to someone. So it does look fishy when you see it. And it's not too normal, at least in gubernatorial races. But, okay, I just showed you 3 lit pieces here. Now, granted, these weren't from Demuth, but don't think for a second Demuth isn't doing these things too. Okay, so how much do campaigns spend on literature, right? It's hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? The big campaigns. And what do we do with this literature? Unless you're nerds like us that actually hold on to these things because, for a history of how things went out, people chuck them, right? I was thinking about this. I was explaining. I'm like, if I got a book, I am less likely to chuck that away. In fact, I feel like I got something of value there. And so I'd probably keep that book hanging around, and maybe it's on a table or maybe it's somewhere. So the value of that would be tremendous because while most people are throwing this away, the book remains there, and I'm sure I don't even remember what his book looks like, but it says Mike Lindell in the front, and it's got a picture of him, and so they're constantly getting that name ID. They're seeing that branding over and over again. In that degree, it's not the worst expenditure. Am I wrong on that?
No, it's not. And for the people, if just 1 in 100 actually reads the book, and I full disclosure, I've not read it, but if I read it and was like really moved by his story, I would be his disciple out there sharing, right? If you can just get, 1 in 100 people to get your book to actually really understand you and your message and what you mean, I think it's a value. So I'm not discounting what he did, but when I see somebody at a county fair was talking about this guy, oh yeah, this guy on Twitter called Dusty Garage, and I didn't understand what they're talking about, and it was Dustin Grage or great whatever his name is. He's out there just trashing Lindell at every moment he can. He's in the bag for Lisa, and I clarified what that is, and I see that there were some legislators also out there trashing Mike Lindell for the same thing. And, it's like they're not being honest about it. They know what the campaign finance laws are and what he's required to do. It's kind of like when the state party was so much in debt to those law firms, and we carried that debt for years. The law firm said, you don't never pay us, right? It's interest free. You don't ever have to pay us. But they couldn't wipe off the debt because that would be a corporate contribution to the party. That's why they had $2 million in debt for so long.
Okay, so let's move to Klobuchar, and I saw some people talk about what's update on the smurfing. We've chatted with the people behind it. There isn't a big update right now. We're gonna try looking into it, but honestly, I don't know. I have no idea. I could see that there is smurfing that's taking place, and Lisa, they're all the same. Amy Klobuchar is not privy to the fact this is happening, so it's an apparatus that happens without her knowledge. But I don't discount the fact that she is going to be a fundraising behemoth next to these people, but it's not even close. It's almost like they're in totally different leagues. I mean, we're talking about, and Klobuchar got in, and I want to say it was March, right? Because Demuth, Qualls, and Lindell all were in last year. Remember, at the end of last year, Tim Walz was still their candidate, and then he drops out mid-January, and the DFL literally didn't have a mainstream candidate for a month. So in that short amount of time, Amy Klobuchar has already raised $9.3 million. Now, Jeremy, this is my sense of this election, okay? And I've been on record on this. I hope the Republicans win the Senate here in Minnesota. I think they're going to screw up the House. I don't think that they did a good job there. And I just don't really see him pulling off this gubernatorial race. Maybe Ron Schutz can beat Keith Allison and send that Antifa-loving commie packing, but honestly, like right now, I don't think we have much of a shot in the gubernatorial race, and there's two reasons. Number one is the motivation of the base is far more on the left side. Everyone could see that. But then number two is if it was equal, let's say both the right and the left bases were mobilized the same, Amy Klobuchar has got a ton more money, and that just means she's going to get to more voters than the Republicans. Am I off on that analysis?
No, you're right. I mean, it does take money to motivate either people who are conservatives or Democrats to get off the couch and get them to vote, or to go after the independents. And Amy Klobuchar could spend $30 for every voter if she wanted to get people out and get them to vote. She has the money to do that. She could pay door knockers, and all these groups of people to go out and help her win. I don't think she needs to do that. I think that another thing that's really hurt us is the Republicans and Democrats really waged war against third-party candidates. Tim Pawlenty never got 50%. His last election, he won with like 46 or 47% of the vote because we had strong third-party candidates, mostly on the left, that would consume 3, 4, 5, 6% of the electorate. We don't have those anymore, and it's really going to come down to just voting Republican or Democrat in the governor's race.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately. Okay, so I want to bring up a string of things that you're probably not going to get anywhere else. I know other people will be talking about these major races. Maybe we give some nuance you won't get elsewhere. But here's something that no one's going to be talking about. You haven't even seen it yet. There is another name in the race for governor. It's John Corrine. He ran for the endorsement. He failed. He wasn't really considered even a big, contender. I think he got like less than 1%. But he went ahead and filed in the primary, and his CFP report is available. and it shows that John has raised $82,000 so far in this election cycle, and he has spent 80,000 of it. So, Jeremy, this is what he did. When you look, there are some people on here that are listed as giving to it, but the vast majority of the money has come from this retired pastor who is giving himself his campaign thousands upon thousands of dollars, including, total of $73,000 total during this campaign that launched probably sometime early spring. And then you look at the expenditures, and he's given to he's buying let's see here, he's got a campaign manager, David Meisner, who was running for, was it Secretary of State, I believe, at the GOP convention.
Yep.
And Jesse just told me that he sent out an email to a bunch of people saying you should support John Corrine. So apparently he's using the list for that benefit. So $10,000 as his campaign manager, that came in June, July. And then David Racer, I believe, is a campaign consultant, $32,000. He paid the party, let's see, where is this? The party, Republican Party of Minnesota, $10,000 just so he could get a booth and a suite so he could address the convention. And apparently he's bought, I saw somewhere it was like printed signs or billboard signs here. Where was that? Yeah, right here. Billboard signs, wrap or moving billboards. So I guess we got to factor in John Corine's put some serious money in the game. Were you even aware of that?
I was not aware. I mean, I've met him a few times on the campaign trail. Interesting guy, interesting story. I love his principles. I think he was really big for the Convention of States. So that's one of his core things that he wants to do. But yeah, interesting guy. Imagine what that $80,000 would have done to help, two candidates that he wants to support to win. I mean, if you got issues that are so big for you, then go fund some state legislative candidates to get the Convention of States over the line.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a dumber expenditure than that. I mean, he's not even brought up in KST polling. He's not going to get even 1%, when it comes to the primary. What is this all for? It's just a big waste of money. But you and I have seen this. We've been so many election cycles. We see people that think that they're going to pull off a fast one on everyone, and then they have no idea what the hell they're doing and waste a ton of their own money, which is, I guess it's his money.
You read the report wrong. The $73,000 came from him.
Right.
So he's funding his own, because I was like, there's limits that you can take donations from people, even if you don't sign the campaign finance report. So that's
what I'm saying. The 73 came right from him.
Okay. Yeah.
I did that correctly?
I thought you said it came from a pastor.
No, he's a pastor. He's a retired pastor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is his retirement.
A lot of money. I guess the reason I said that is there's a lot of money from a retired pastor. They're usually not very wealthy.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, interesting. That's interesting. Let's talk about some of the independent expenditures that you think are going to happen in this race.
All right. Well, here we go. We got the Jobs Coalition. So this one I know you got a passion for. Yep. The Jobs Coalition, which is a legislative fund. John Rouleau is the treasurer and probably the political guy behind it. They raised $450,000. It's all come from the RSLC. One was done in May, and we reported this earlier. And then the next one was the last day of filing period, which was July 20th. Now, why I bring up the Jobs Coalition is these are the establishment types that actually go up against conservative candidates in the primary. And here, sitting on the executive committee of the RSLC, is Lisa Demuth, the House Speaker of Minnesota. She's known as the vice chair. Do you think these suckers are going to get involved again in primary races and go up against conservative candidates?
Yeah, I think they do. They do. We complain about this every cycle, and every cycle I'm assured by leadership that it's not going to happen again. Yes, I had talked to someone in leadership about 10 days ago, and he said that there was more money going to the Jobs Coalition from the RSLC and to the Senate Victory Fund and things like that, so that they can help win. To the Jobs Coalition defense, they do spend a lot of money against Democrats. It's just that they also spend money against conservatives in primaries, and that is why we are in the minority, right? I mean, that's 4 years ago. They got involved in races, and that's why we're sitting in the minority right now, because the Senate lost that seat for Tom DePel.
Well, and they put up a goose egg too. They went big time. Let's see, the races was no, it wasn't DePel. It was Bashowski, Mortensen, and Pam Altendorf, and they put up a goose egg against all those races.
Yeah.
But DePel was getting money spent from other entities, because we did an article on this, and they went up against Lisa down in Sin District. Well, I can't remember which one that one is. So anyhow, what races do you think they get involved in? Are they going after Wiesenberg? They've usually been more disciplined and staying in the House races, but I'm not aware of too many big primaries and House races. They're mostly in the Senate.
Yeah, I mean, I think they get involved in Aaron Brutker's race and in Wiesenberg's race, supporting the non-endorsed candidates. And then there's a House member in Wiesenberg's district as well that to replace Ron Krisha.
There you go. Good points. Streamer and Lindquist. Good point.
Yeah. So I think that they might get involved. And then also, does John Joes have a primary opponent? He's in the St. Cloud area.
I'm not. Yeah, that might be right. I'm not too. I don't follow stuff as much as I used to. So
yeah. So they may get involved in those as well. But obviously, we see this all the time, where they complain if we are supporting conservative candidates, but when they are out there pounding on conservatives, it somehow it's okay to attack our own. The circular firing squad is allowed.
Yeah, well, obviously I'm never one of those guys going, oh, it's a circular firing squad. The Democrats are just as bad. By the way, the big news story, if you guys didn't see this, what was it? John Hoffman comes out and says that, because he's pro Peggy Flanagan, he says that Angie Craig called him when he was in the hospital recovering from almost being murdered and asked for his endorsement as a hospital. And Angie Craig denies this, and it seems like there's a lot of question marks if that really happened. I'm just like, oh my God, like, think about that one. Is John Hoffman lying? Is Angie Craig lying? Did she actually do that? The idea that the infighting is all on the Republican side is just trash. The Democrats are just as much at each other's throats.
You're right. So let's just talk about two races on the Democrat side that are important. We're talking about the U.S. Senate race between kind of moderate Angie Craig and crazy liberal Peggy Flanagan. And the base is divided. I think if Peggy Flanagan is the candidate, does it hurt Amy Klobuchar in the end, because the moderates will stay home and not be as engaged and excited about Flanagan? I mean, then Gwen Walls also came out and endorsed against Peggy. She endorsed Angie Craig, and then I think somebody said that she took her post down after a lot of pressure. So it's interesting. I mean, it's fascinating to watch all that on that side of the aisle. And then also CD2 has a pretty contested primary between three candidates in CD2.
Right.
And it's great because Democrats are just burning through cash. Obviously, they're going to outspend us in the end, 3-1 or 4-1, but it's good to see them burn cash in primaries.
Yeah, I don't think that matters. I think it's going to be a referendum on Trump and the Trump administration. So I don't think Peggy Flanagan's going to make much of an impact, or Angie Craig, in the end of the day. And Amy Klobuchar is obviously very safe for them. So, I mean, people are used to voting for Amy Klobuchar. She's run in Minnesota statewide at least 3 times, including the primary races that she's been in. Not that they were really in contested primary races. All right, here's another one for you. MCCL, which calls itself a pro-life group. They raised $138,677, and they made a bunch of independent expenditures. And I think the one that's most noteworthy is they've spent $11,710 on 2 mailers going against the most pro-life guy we have in the Minnesota Senate, Nathan Wiesenberg. So that's why you got to wonder, how pro-life are these people? They went against Nathan Wiesenberg. Now, we've reported about this expenditure. We've actually talked to Wiesenberg about it. It wasn't until today we actually knew how much that expenditure cost. What are your thoughts on that, Munson?
Well, I didn't know there was a second mailer. Is this one that hasn't hit yet?
No, this one is hit. I think they were aware of it. So this is just where we finally knew the amounts.
I was surprised. I was very upset about this, and I didn't, I don't want want to get involved in too many battles that I can't take on, but I did spread the word on this one and spent 45 minutes on the phone with the executive director of MCCL. I was pretty upset about what they're doing, and I don't think that they found it to be defensible on their side because they know. I mean, Nathan Wiesenberg is pro-life. They admitted that, and so I thought that they would back off, and not spend again in this race. But it looks like they are sending out another mailer, and that's just pretty sad to see.
And they have sent out text messages in the race, which aren't on here, but that I'd have to see those text messages to see if they were, advocacy messages.
Yeah.
This is also interesting. So they've done some IEs. They've done a bunch for Lisa Damuth, who, by the way, uses taxpayer funds. So she passes omnibus bills that fund taxpayer or taxpayer funded abortions.
Well, and let's just be clear. They're attacking Nathan Wiesenberg for not authoring, but co-authoring a bill that Lisa Damuth voted for in the House. And that's what I was trying to have make sense at MCCL, was like, how can you attack Nathan Wiesenberg for being the co-author of this bill when your candidate actually voted for it? Nathan never voted for it. And their excuse was, well, maybe she didn't have time to read it, which is actually
of course,
a worse offense. If you were voting for stuff that you don't read, that's even more egregious of an offense. But they did endorse it. That is. Right.
Then they're getting involved in the auditor race, because that really matters for a pro-life group, spending a total of $5,000 for Nate George. I'm guessing that's just maybe because Scott Jensen's not pro-life. And then the Secretary of State, $4,945 for that. So just so people understand, this is your pro-life group. They're spending money against the most pro-life senator, Nathan Wiesenberg. Meanwhile, they're spending in races that don't even really matter to abortion. This is just how pathetic that organization is.
Well, it's as MCCL stepped into the negotiating table with legislators, they get soft. And, MCCL used to be great. They used to primary sitting legislators who wouldn't advance pro-life legislation. And then they become soft, and then it create favors. And basically, I think MCCL, Don Parker told me, well, whenever there's a race between two people and one of them has a voting record that's pro-life, we'll always endorse that candidate. I mean, no question. Well, what about Nathan Wiesenberg? Well, that was an exception to their hardened rule. But that's why they claim to endorse Lisa.
The thing that always bugs me about them also is the fact that they say, well, abortion, taxpayer funding of abortions has gone up in Minnesota. And then I go, oh, yeah, it has. And guess what funds it? These large omnibus bills that these Republican candidates are voting for. So at one point, they want to complain about the funding of abortions with taxpayer money, but then they never hold the people that are voting for it accountable. It's like you can't have both things. But of course, you can in politics because it's a bunch of doublespeak. So, all right. So, Munson, anything that I'm missing that you, because, very few people are like you and me. These days, these disclosures come out. We actually pile through and look at stuff. Anything else stand out?
I mean, I like to look at the stuff that's not on the report. I question all of these social media influencers that are out there. I mentioned to you that when the U.S. Senate race was heating up a few months ago, I got a call from Michael Broadcorb, and the last time I talked with him, he yelled at me for half an hour and almost wouldn't let me hang up. So I didn't take the call, but I talked with a friend who was working with the Royce White campaign, and she said, yeah, Michael Broadcorb called me today. And I said, oh, what did he want? Because I missed his call. Oh, he wanted to know how he could help out Royce White. So, so you have these weird social media influencers that are being paid by campaigns and going against their own principles. I know Michael Broadcorb wants Democrats to win. So in no possible way does he actually want to support Royce White. But he is working against the party and working against our endorsed candidate and doing everything he can to maybe stop Michelle Tafoya from being the candidate. And then, you get Dustin, I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, Dustin Grady, out there just totally in the bag for Lisa Damuth. And I like Dustin on other issues, but on this, he's just absolutely wrong. But he's trashing Mike Lindell at every chance he can get. And Twitter doesn't vote. Facebook kind of votes, but Twitter doesn't vote. But Twitter does impact the media and people's perception of the race and can affect donors. And so I think it's interesting to watch social media influencers play into this race.
Well, no doubt about it. I think this goes without saying that a lot of these social media influencers are getting paid, and they're getting paid probably by third party consultancies or organizations. So not directly from the campaigns. And if they are, then they're not being reported. But I mean, I think people know Broadcorp is getting paid by the left, and he just happened to get paid by David Hand through the Republican Party donations, which is a story that we broke on this show. Dustin's probably getting paid, I'm guessing, from some third party, to promote these establishment candidates, you know. Yeah, at the end of the day, the people that do this, it's sad because we know that this is a very well vetted story that a lot of people are getting paid by pro-Israel entities to kind of promote Israel as they're struggling, with younger generations. And, it's the infamous that $7,000 check sounds good because there's this basis in that some of these people are getting paid $7,000 per post. It's ugly. It's very ugly for people like us in media that you would do that. That's why you have to tell, and you got to be disclosing who's, supporting your show, like, Alpine Cabinetry or Elite Guardian or the Premium Insiders. I would have no integrity if I was getting paid on the side and then commenting on this stuff. I mean, that's just journalism 101, that you have to disclose those kind of things. But these people aren't journalists, and they don't really have those kind of ethics. And so I think that's pretty widespread.
Yeah, another thing that I look at in reports is to see how many lobbyists and special interest group money is coming in. I think Lisa Damon's last report shows about $22,000 in lobbyists and special interest group money.
Yep.
Look, I went back and forth on this because there are good PACs that are supportive of limited government, which I agree with, which I align with, and then there's the corporate PACs that the Automobile Manufacturers Association and all this junk that, they want favor, and that's concerning when they start donating to candidates, so looking at the campaigns to see how much PAC money is going in. And then you mentioned earlier these.
Well, let me interrupt you real quick, because I was telling the totals for those three main Republican candidates, and there was no PACs or lobbyist contributions to the Kindle campaign or the Lindell campaigns, which makes it easy. The only line I have to look at is individual contributions. Damuth has a bunch of different categories. She's got both PACs and lobbyists, and not all those are. Most of them are not limited government ones.
And she snagged $5,000 from retiring Representative Paul Torkelson next to me. So it's also interesting to see how many legislators are out there making videos for Lisa Damuth or trashing Lindell, saying a vote for Kendall is a vote for Lindell or whatever. And that's just sad to see people that are just so in the bag. And if Lisa Damuth were to become governor, how many sitting legislators would quit their jobs, putting a majority at risk in order to take a job as a public utility commissioner or some job in the administration? And that'd be frightening, right? You'd wreck, if we had a trifecta in Minnesota, she could wreck it by choosing candidates in tough districts.
Well, I think that's true. If Republican does win the governor's race, there's probably going to be a trifecta, and in that case, I guess you would have a special election in time for most of the legislation to pass its way through. So I'm not as concerned about that. I guess those would be good problems, but I'm not always convinced the trifecta Republicans is a good thing. I almost think mixed government is the best thing. That's why I guess a lot of the things I say will be proved correctly if there's a trifecta. And there's a trifecta, by the way, in Washington, D.C. And do you see government shrinking? Do you see us winning big time?
Well, we ended all the wars. We released the Epstein files. We balanced the budget. We implemented Doge.
Right. Yep. No, nope, and nope. And debt keeps going up. So no, I'm not convinced it's good to have a Republican trifecta. Now it can be, but we have to have the right people. And Lisa Damuth clearly isn't a conservative. But this is the argument I made from the get-go. Okay, I get why people are concerned about Mike Lindell. He looks like a cornball. He is a crack addict businessman. He looks and talks like one, all right? If you're hanging around entrepreneurs like me, he's not that much of an outlier. That's how these people think, and that's the way they act. And that's not a very disciplined candidate. And so a lot of people in the political world don't like it. So I get that, why people think that way. And that might hurt him in an election. But people think, well, the safe hand, the easy, common one is to put Lisa Damuth there, right? Because she's already got some name ID and she'll be much more disciplined. And she'll probably have a better campaign, true, because she's got consultants that know what they're talking about. But when she's matched up against Amy Klobuchar, people are going to pick the devil they know over the devil they don't know. She's not going to distinguish herself at all from Amy Klobuchar. She'll run right to the middle. She'll probably not want anything to do with Donald Trump. Right? That's what all the campaign consultants will tell her. Run away from Donald Trump. He's going to hurt you. Just like Eric Paulson did in what was that, 2018? And then that seat has gone Democrat ever since. They'll run from Donald Trump. They'll lose the election, and and which will probably be a referendum on Donald Trump. And so it did you no good, but hurt your base.
I want to just add, it was interesting because the whole time Lisa's campaign has been attacking Lindell as he's too conservative to win. He's too tied with Trump, everything. And then as soon as Lindell mentioned something about that could be mistaken as amnesty, Lisa pounced and said, I will deport everybody. I'll be with Trump. Like she jumped over the top of Lindell to be to the right of him. In the hopes that Trump would either rescind his endorsement or endorse both. But, as soon as she gets the primary nomination, if she gets it, she would immediately pivot to the left and run in that general election campaign as an extreme moderate. Whereas Lindell, you're right, he's like a Jesse Ventura or Trump. He can't be controlled by the consultant class. And he does say some things without thinking things through, but he would be an interesting candidate. I don't think he's unwinnable. In fact, he might be the like in the Trump world, he could be the only thing that could beat the establishment Democrat is somebody like Mike Lindell.
Well, he's got much more name ID, and he's seen on TV, and quite frankly, he'll probably be able to raise the most amount of money. But I would even argue Kendall Claus would be better than Lisa Damuth because at least there's some bit of just, you got a guy that's an outsider. Like he has not been in, he's run many times. That's a sucky thing, but he hasn't actually been in a position of power. Amy Klobuchar can run against fraud all day long, but she's been in the United States Senator from Minnesota since 2006 or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
And
she's been briefed. She's been briefed many times by the FBI about the fraud. Now I want to run one question by you. Okay. If Michelle Tafoya were to win the U.S. Senate nomination, and
you mean the primary?
The primary.
I think she will, by the way.
And then Lindell wins. Could we send Lindell to rural Minnesota to get out the vote and Michelle Tafoya to the metro to all these squishy Republican seats to try to win? She is basically would campaign like a Democrat. And would she appeal to metro voters? Would that team, Lindell and Tafoya statewide, be a net positive for Republicans?
It's funny as you say that. I have not thought of that, even though I predict those two probably to be the most successful. I'm pretty confident in Tafoya winning at this point. The governor's race I won't call yet. I'm not certain on that, but the money right now would be on that being the ticket, and that would be an interesting dynamic to see if they campaign together and how that would work.
I don't think they campaign together. And people that have called me concerned about Lindell dragging people down. I said, look, worst case scenario, Lindell is like a Royce White, where he runs his own thing. He doesn't necessarily net hurt Republicans, but he needs to be respectful of BPOUs in Minnetonka that say, you know what, Royce, don't come to our event, or don't come, campaign with Andrew Myers. And I think that Lindell would probably do the same thing, where he can come out and get everybody out in rural Minnesota that's concerned about chemtrails and other issues off the couch to go vote, because having someone inspire people like Trump did is what we need to win. I go back to when MAGA-soda was a thing back in 2016, and I walked into an event in Mankato with Michelle Even running this, and there were over 100 people, and I knew 2 people in the room. That we need somebody to help get people to come out of the woodwork to go vote. And I don't see Lisa Damuth as inspiring the Trump crowd, whereas I do think Lindell could. And then Michelle Tafoya can work in the metro and among moderate Republicans too. I think they'd be an interesting team. And unfortunately, they're the non-endorsed candidates, but it would be a good team to win Minnesota.
Well, and the thing that Michelle Tafoya has going for her is it's past politics, because remember, the average voter, especially in general election, just doesn't really pay attention. But they've seen her in their household on Sunday night during football, which is America's sport. And so she has that celebrity status. It's not huge, but it's something, right? It's not like it's Joel Mauer, but it's still something. They probably remember her, and they probably even recognize the name, but that when they see her face, they probably remember her. And so I think that actually helps quite a bit. It's just sad her last name's not Anderson or Johnson. That would even help more, because that's a bump. Let's be honest, that's a bump in Minnesota politics. but that celebrity status is a bump.
Yeah, I told a lot of people about this where Elda Kreif and I had Michelle to the NRA banquet in LeSueur County, and she literally walked up to a group of hardcore gun supporters, grabbed a gun off of a table and said something like, "This is the first time I've ever held a gun in my hand." And I went, "Oh gosh, like she's still learning." But she had everybody in that room eating out of her palm because she's a great communicator. It is her job. She's just a wonderful person to be around, and she's willing to learn these issues. And when I interviewed her about the Second Amendment, and when I asked her about her stance, instead of giving me Lisa Damon's line about growing up with a hunter in the family, she just said something about if everybody in Iran had weapons, they wouldn't have the government that they have today. And that tells me that she may not be, as educated on guns, but if she knows the purpose of the Second Amendment, which has nothing to do with hunting and everything about limited government, then she can learn. And so I thought she's an interesting candidate. And I think her celebrity and Mike Lindell's celebrity could win over the Jesse Ventura and Al Franken people that just vote on celebrity.
Well, let me just state this here for the record. I mean, I'm praising her ability as a candidate because I do see some huge advantages there. I mean, I wouldn't vote for her. Like, I know exactly what I'm getting out of Michelle Tafoya. She's going to be the status quo. Let's just be honest. I think Schwartzy will be too. I don't think these guys are going to distinguish themselves. Royce White would be the only hope, I think, of actually. Because, listen, if I'm going to vote in a federal race at this point, and I've felt this many election cycles, but certainly after some of the disappointments in the 2024, it better be someone that's shaking things up in Washington, D.C. If you're going out there and you're just in line with the Mitch McConnell, John Thune establishment, which is clearly what she's going to be, then I have zero interest. I'd rather just not vote in that race because my vote doesn't freaking matter. I don't fall for this Republican versus Democrat bullshit. In some regards, I'm almost like send Peggy Flanagan because it's a clown show. So send the biggest clown out there. Let's see, because do we really have hope in Washington, D.C.? They're $40 trillion in debt. They say they don't want wars, and then yet they're funding 2 wars right now and 2 quagmires, especially the Ukraine quagmire, which we are funding. So, no, I think it's a lost cause. So I have zero interest unless a candidate shows that they are going to go up against the status quo.
Well, I need to say, Adam, if you're listening, I love you. I support you. But I've told people that whether it's Adam or Michelle that's elected, I think that to go against leadership and vote something different, to be the, that Royce White would probably do. I just don't see those two voting much differently when it comes down to it, right? That so much of the votes are party line. And if somebody does step out of line, whether it's Rand Paul or Thomas Massey, they'll get their ass handed to them. And, we've seen that. So that was a warning shot, and everybody else is going to be falling in line behind leadership. Right. Very, very difficult to find someone that's going to be an independent voice, a true principled person that's going to vote their conscience. That's, I think, almost a thing of the past.
Well, that's a great point. And that's why I'm not even so concerned about this upcoming election cycle. I mean, guys, I'll trash the Republicans all day long because I'm not worried so much what happens in November. I'm looking many years down the future. I'm looking at what the young people are telling us and polling and online, because I see some hope there. But right now, I mean, it's bad. Like, for instance, Michelle Tafoya, she's got a statement about the rising gas prices, and it just means you get one less Starbucks. You don't think the Democrats are going to play that one over and over again? Schwarzy's in full support of the Iran war, including a statement on radio saying that it's worth people dying over. And he's also on record, there's a podcast he was on that he's talking about, and by the way, the story is not even true, right? But he's talking like he was part of a war crime, killing 1,000 people in Iraq, including women and children. You can find this. It's a podcast out there. I don't know what the name of the podcast is. And that event didn't even happen. So he made up a war crime. You don't think the Democrats are going to play that one over and over again? Quite frankly, the Iran war is not popular. This has been polled, by the way. I think KSTP even asked that. It's not popular nationwide. It's certainly not popular in Minnesota. But you know what's interesting? The number one issue in this election is affordability. It will be the big issue. The only saving grace for Republicans right now is fraud also is a big issue. And those two could be connected, by the way, if it's done right. These guys aren't doing it right. But affordability is the issue. And most people don't understand it's the manipulation of the money supply by an unaffordable government that really has led to the rising prices. But another thing that's led to rising prices, especially in fuel, is the Iran war. And everyone knows that. Everyone knows it's $4.20 right now at the gas station, or $4.19, whatever it is, because of the Iran war. That will be a big deal in this election, and the Democrats know that, and they're going to play that over and over again. That actually might be the Achilles heel of Michelle Tafoya, because her celebrity status is nice, but it also means she probably comes from Hollywood. I say that in quotations. She's from the sports world, but so she's like not from here in Minnesota, doesn't feel the pain. She just thinks you can't drink another Starbucks so you can fund this war. It will 100% be used against her by the Democrats.
Well, I think you're right on the Iran war. I wish she would come out against it. I think that both Adam and Michelle are fearful of coming out against the Iran war because Trump will endorse the other opponent, the other person. I know that Adam thinks he can get Trump's endorsement. I've told him many times, dude, if Michelle Tafoya gets in a room with Trump for more than 7 seconds, she's got his endorsement. And I just don't think that I think he should just stay out of the race in the U.S. Senate race. And I wish that both candidates would just agree to be against the war, because that's going to help them in the general instead of trying to pander to try to get Trump's endorsement.
Right. And it's the principled thing to do. I don't always make the political calculation. I make the what's right. I think it's just better to do what's right over long term. All right, Munson, good breaking down these numbers with you. I guess you're running for office. Where do people find you? What are your Twitter handle? What's your Twitter handle, website, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, you can find me on X at Jeremy Munson. I'm on Facebook at just Jeremy Munson. And you can go to Jeremy Munson, JeremyMunson.com to read more about me and to support my campaign. I do not have a primary opponent. So if you're looking at getting your checkbook out, go to Nathan Wiesenberg, look up Nathan Wiesenberg, look up Mike Weiner, look up Aaron Brutker, help these guys get through the primary. It's really important because I want to win a majority. And I know that the state house is not running really good campaigns right now. I don't think we're going to win the governor's race, but we do have an opportunity for winning the state Senate. And we have some very important races, including up in the Iron Range, that we must win, in Moorhead and St. Cloud with Bernie Perryman. And I even told who's the chiropractor on the north end of the metro, Jim Abler. I went into his office and said, Jim, I'm going to help you for at least 2 days this summer so I can come up here next year and vote against your bills in the majority. And I need him. I need him elected. So we need to win the majority.
That's perfect. All right, I'll leave that comment. Take care, Jeremy.
Bye.
Oh, he knows how to get me smiling. That's funny. No, in the end of the day, I also think the Democrats need to pay for the terrible gun legislation that they passed in the Senate. It was all 34 Democrats who voted to ban AR-15s. Luckily, it didn't pass in the House, and Walz never got to sign it. But they should pay for that. They should be punished. I do hope the Republicans win the Senate, right? That would be the branch that I hope that they win. Anyhow, I hope you got a lot out of this show, breaking down these numbers, unlike most groups or people would do it. This episode was brought to you by Alpine Country in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota. Go to alpinecountry.com. Also brought to you by EliteGuardianMN.com. Go to EliteGuardianMN.com, click on Minnesota Permit to Carry class, and sign up. You can shoot with me as your instructor. A lot of fun. I'll be back with another show, possibly this week. So much to talk about. Oh, yes, 100% this week. Initially wanted to do a show about the Fauci diaries, but I thought it was important to talk about this because this is something you just don't get from everywhere. But Fauci will be in front of Senator Rand Paul's committee tomorrow, and I hope something comes from it. I hope to God that guy gets held accountable. It's my last bit of hope that there is accountability up in the federal government. So we'll bring that story to you. We should be back by Thursday. Take care. God bless. And we'll see you later. Bye-bye. Oh, I'm sorry. Post show for Premium Insiders starts in 1 minute. Bye-bye.